right, I think we're ready to go. It's just, sorry, I'm trying a new setup. There we are. And let's turn it down on my end so I'm not trying to speak over. This way I'm not trying to speak over the music in the background on my end. So, there we go. And I'm trying a new setup where I'm directly connected with Ethernet instead of using Wi-Fi. So hopefully that works out, and I should be connected using that right now. I'm not sure if I need to disconnect from the Wi-Fi in order for it to have a better output or what, but I'm going to see if that doesn't improve my stream output. In any case, hi there, folks. This is Rowan, coming from the library to do another installment of Dear in Projector Lights, where we review movies, mainly the new releases, but in this case, I'm going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff that came out this year because I'm playing catch-up. So we got a whole lot to go through, so let's head on over. And I've got a cat who's being a butthead right now. So if you hear noises in the background or if you hear me chastising somebody, that's probably her. Aren't you a butthead? You're my little butthead. Alrighty. So let's get things started with the big new release that everybody's talking about, Dear Evan Hansen. So I never actually saw the stage play, the stage musical, so I have no idea how good that one is as a stage musical, but I remember seeing this coming out and like, okay, yeah, big Tony Award winning musical, that makes sense. And then I started hearing the reviews, or not the reviews at least, but the scores, because I was trying to stay mainly unspoiled going to this. All I knew was that there was this big negative reaction to the movie. And so I'm like, okay, well, it's time to see what everybody's talking about. And I still went in with that open mind, and I totally see what everybody's talking about. So, for those who aren't familiar with the stage show, Dear Evan Hansen talks about... Actually, I want to see something real quick. Not wait for the music to kick back up. And play the next thing to see if it stays. I updated my chat box so everything should stay in place. But I may need to repost the URL for it. So I'm gonna see if that does it. See if that's the case. I think we're good. Okay, I'll check back in a few seconds. Suffice to say that the musical deals with mental health issues, and content warning for people. This because of the topics discussed in the movie, I will be discussing mental health issues and suicide. So yeah, it's the premise deals with Evan Hansen, who is a neurotic and anxiety-ridden hot mess of a guy who starts the school year with a broken arm. And it's slowly revealed over the course of the movie what exactly happened to him. And during his first couple of days back at school, specifically his first day back at school, he's supposed to be doing this project for his therapist where he writes himself a letter, Dear Evan Hansen, hence the title, and then it's supposed to be a motivational letter for him to to give himself some confidence and that sort of thing. And he writes one up, and then he rewrites a new one after his bad day at school, and he basically talks about how, he vents essentially and prints it out to give to his therapist. And a therapist we never actually see, by the way, which is really weird. I don't know if he's a character in the musical or not, in the stage show or not, but he writes this out, and it's found by this kid who is who's even worse off than Evan, who is dealing with all kinds of emotional issues and has violent outbursts and yells at people and is angry. And he sees Evan's letter and notices his sister's name, takes it personally, thinks it's a joke because he takes everything personally, and runs off with it. And the big inciting incident is when it's revealed that that kid had killed himself. Like I mentioned, content warning, we're going to be talking, suicide is part of the premise of this. In fact, it's a major running theme of this movie. So if you don't want to hear me discuss it, then you can come back in a bit. It's gonna be a while I just break this down. But in fact, I should probably put that up on the screen. Let me put a new text box in so that people know. And I'm going to create another one in a bit, but for right now, let's focus on, let's do big old, can't go wrong with, ooh, Rockwell. That's a good font. We'll do size 36, content warning, topic. I'll do it, this will be like a content warning for people just tuning in. Discussions of mental health and suicide. Let's make it a bit bigger. Alrighty. Then we'll put that right. Oop. Now it's too small. So there we go. There we go. Nice big thing on the screen so people can see it. So yeah, the kid Connor ends up taking his life. They don't specify how, thankfully. It's not that tasteless. But his parents, one of whom is played by Amy Adams, the mom, find Evan's letter in his coat pocket. And they believe it was a suicide note addressed to Evan, so she believes that Evan is his friend. And Evan, because he's a neurotic hot mess, can't even tell them the truth that he was writing that for himself, and Connor ran off with it. He attempts to like once, and then he's railroaded and too flustered to just outright tell them the truth. And eventually, and so instead of just leaving it at that, he embellishes. He says, "Oh, yeah, we were best friends," and then soon that snowballs into him essentially recontextualizing Connor's life and making up an entirely different Connor in order to placate this grieving, specifically the grieving mother, but overall the grieving family, including Connor's sister, whom he's had a crush on for most of his life. And for some reason, Evan is not treated as the bad guy in the story. Yeah. Over the course of the movie, you've got a character played by Amanda Stenberg who opens up about her own issues with mental health and depression and anxiety. And she starts up the Connor Project, which is similar to the Trevor Project in the sense that it's an outreach. It's designed to be an outreach program for kids dealing with mental health issues and depression. And then as the movie goes on, Evan starts to connect more with Zoe, and then slowly but surely things start to unravel, especially after Evan gives this big speech. That's the big intermission. I think it's the song. It sounds like the song that would be before the intermission happens. That big number in the middle, and after that is when things start to kind of unravel around Evan as he can't keep up this facade much longer. And then slowly but surely, it goes into the liar revealed trope, and then the movie pretty much just ends after that. Like, there's no real repercussions that Evan faces for completely fabricating this relationship he had, this friendship he had with Connor, and he faces no real world repercussions for his actions. But I think that's true of both the show and the movie. So I think that just may come down to the writing being that bad. Apparently, I did talk to my mom about it. She and my dad support the local, not local, but they support a playhouse and are members and have a membership with them and support them monetarily, and then get tickets to some of the shows. And she did see Evan Hansen, but wasn't all that into it. Like, she didn't hate it, but she didn't love it. She could definitely tell that it was not very well executed in trying to handle the topics of mental health and suicide. And I guess that's the same, because I think the same writer is handling the movie. I think it was the same guy, the same people behind the stage show adapting this movie. And so a lot of those issues that were with the stage show are also here. And it's definitely just not kind of tasteless. It's pretty tasteless in the way it's executed. Like, I think that's the thing. It's like, it's wanting to try and make a commentary on how kids will treat a sudden suicide in the high school, and how the grieving process goes, and how they'll try to form all of these things and do these activist things, but or something, I guess. But honestly, whatever they were trying to go, I think they're trying to tell a story about, I don't know. I don't know what the point of this story was. I don't understand what the deal is, because Evan Hansen is a despicable human being, honestly. Just like, not intentionally, obviously. He has no ill intentions, but he is so selfish, ultimately, and faces, once again, no repercussions for his actions, for his own selfishness, for his own selfish deeds, and his own his own inadequacies to do the right thing when the time comes. And I think that's the big thing, is that if nothing else, this story would probably have worked better without Evan Hansen as the lead, because he is a genuinely awful character. And like, I compare this to Jennifer's Body, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. In fact, no, not a couple of weeks, last week. I reviewed Jennifer's Body. I rewatched that finally. And that actually did a better job satirizing the whole sort of students, grieving at in public school at the loss of another student, and that whole sort of superficial grieving, and that superficial emotion that they feel. Like, they never really cared, or else they wouldn't have they would have shown some affection when they're alive, but they publicly grieve and then move on. And then they'll latch on to something or another that it makes them feel good about themselves, but it's not really they never really genuinely cared about the person before they died. It's that. So I think Jennifer's Body actually handled that subject matter way better than Evan Hansen did. And that was like almost a decade ago. No, that was over a decade ago. Jennifer's Body is 12 years old now. And as for this movie, I think the big thing that everybody's talking about is the fact that the kid is way too old to be trying to play high school. This dude looks like Jesse Eisenberg in The Social Network. He should not be hanging around a high school. If this guy was walking around the high school, and I get that he was the guy who played the role on stage on Broadway, so it was like his big break, and so he gets to I mean, they did that with Rent too, the Rent movie, but I think ultimately, and I think that casting kind of worked, because most of them they were already playing adults, so them being a little bit older doesn't hurt. But I still think, like, if it gets to a point where it's so many years, especially if you're playing the younger character you play, and between the Broadway show and the movie adaptation, then maybe you should hold off from just having the Broadway people come on. Sometimes that's fine when it's not like age dependent, but if this guy's supposed to be playing high school and he looks like he's going for starting to think about his graduate degrees, then I think we should cast younger. I mean, Amanda Stenberg looks a little bit like she could pass for a senior in high school, but she's still starting to get to that age where she needs to start playing more adult roles because she's a damn adult already. So she can't be playing high school until her 30s. But yeah, like, this kid is way too old to be playing high school, and not to mention the fact that he's just not all that charismatic. He's actually kind of a whiny dickbag on screen. He doesn't really have any real screen presence. He feels like an even worse Jesse Eisenberg and roles like Mark Zuckerberg and roles like Lex Luthor. All of those worst aspects of Jesse Eisenberg's performances, this kid has them to 11. And none of the good parts of Eisenberg's performances. It's all of the worst parts. And yeah, like I said, Evan Hansen is just I mean, maybe if that was the point, that he should have faced way more repercussions for his actions than he does. Like, if anything, somebody pointed out that Amanda Stenberg's character is depicted more in the wrong than Evan Hansen was for something she did in the movie. For actually digging around and investigating and revealing something that Evan didn't want people to know. She's the bad one, not the one who's been actively lying to a grieving family and not opening up about the fact that he's had a crush on this girl since forever, and utilizing stuff he noticed about her as a crush in order to make it seem like her brother loved her. Like, we're talking about some real heinous stuff that Evan Hansen does. And aside from, like, nasty internet comments, which are more aimed towards the family, Evan faces no consequences. He just goes back to normal before the movie. He goes back to where he was at the beginning of the movie, except knowing that he's an asshole. Nobody ever treats him differently. Nobody ever holds him accountable. He never actively receives any real repercussions for his actions. And I think that really is the kicker here, is that in any number one, it's unrealistic, kind of, a bit. I mean, the internet would probably get its outrage out first, and then but I mean, they would still, make this kid's life a living hell for what he did, for pulling that shit. If nothing else, he would actively receive, like, the fact that that it ends with, like, a montage of, like, him finishing out high school, and that it never addresses the fact that, like, nobody ever mentions the fact that, Evan Hansen actively lied about being best friend to a kid who committed suicide and made a big deal about it, and then comes out, oh wait, he made it all up, and then never really explains why he did it to people, and then just receives no repercussions for it. Just, like, all that really happens is he doesn't get the girl he likes at the end of the movie. That's all that really happens, is, like, the girl he was in love with doesn't, she goes from being in love with him to hating him to basically recognizing he exists and then moving on with her life. And that's the worst he gets out of what he did. He receives no repercussions for his actions, and that's absolutely irresponsible as a writer. That just feels so. Even if it is even if the point was that, oh, he didn't face any repercussions because kids like this don't. If that was your point, is that sometimes kids don't face repercussions for their shitty actions, okay. But that doesn't make a good story, especially if the point of the story is that this kid is an asshole. He should receive. I mean, that's the whole point. That's the hubris. That's the point of telling a story about an asshole, is that their actions have consequences. some kind of consequence. It doesn't have to be like jail time or death or anything like that. It doesn't have to be like the Hays Code or anything, but your actions should have consequences of some kind in the and some kind in the story for it to feel worthwhile. As for the songs, they're fine. There's another musical that I watched coming up, and I have the same thing. Like, I think I'm at the point now where you have to be on your game in order to make like amazing musical numbers. Like, I think we're so far into musical theater as a medium that just doing just that basic style isn't enough. You have to really give us something. And like, this is they credit this as like people behind the songwriters behind La La Land and The Greatest Showman. And honestly, I think The Greatest Showman's soundtrack is way better than this. And even so, I would still rate those as like middle of the road, C tier musical numbers. I don't get the hype. They aren't all that great. And here, yeah, they don't really like this. Honestly, didn't even need to be a musical. In fact, the musical numbers actively undercut the themes of the movie. It's like, you can't be a serious, look into mental health and suicide and then bust out with these big old musical numbers. And yeah, like, especially the one people are memeing now and spreading over TikTok and Twitter is the big finale number, the one that Evan does when after he's revealed what he did, and he's like breaking down and crying. The guy who looks so weird and awkward and ugly and stupid on screen, but the song itself is really bad too in that regard. Like, the whole thing, just like all the stuff when they try to feature songs it does not fit. It completely messes up the entire tone of the movie. Not to mention the fact that you've got production design and camera work that is honestly bare bones. It doesn't feel active. It does, like, you compare this to a movie like In the Heights. In the Heights came out earlier this year, a few months ago, and it had sweeping motions and utilized all kinds of stuff for its dance numbers. Granted, this is not the exact same kind of musical, but at the same point, like, you don't there's not a whole lot of dance numbers, but it's just shot, 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 reverse shot, shot, reverse shot, shot, reverse shot, 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 shot. It's like entirely static camera, and it doesn't really engage the viewer in any way. It doesn't feel, it feels basic. It feels boring. It doesn't feel like we're watching a musical. Even if it is a flat, even if it's meant to be a darker, more mature musical, it still feels flat and lifeless, and it feels like they didn't put all that much effort into it. I feel like watching a filmed production of the stage show would be way more interesting than what we got here. And yeah, like, the only thing that this movie has going for it is Julianne Moore's good, because she's always good, and Amy Adams is good, because she's usually good, and Amanda Stenberg is good, because she's usually good. The cast isn't the problem, because the cast isn't bad. It's just the material they're given is absolute garbage. So no cast could save this movie. And yeah, I do want to talk about one thing, but it's going into spoilers, so I am going to add a quick spoiler tag as well. Let me get that up on the screen. We'll make this one, ooh, there's a good one. Max size. Color is this. And shrink it down just a tad so it actually fits on screen. Okay. We're heading into spoiler territory now. And because I wanted to talk about what I think is the actual funniest scene in the movie. And it's deep, deep into spoiler territory. It's right after Evan reveals the truth to the Murphys, to Amy Adams and Zoe and the family he's been spending all of this time with. Sorry about that. There's family chores going abound outside. Lots of pressure washing. It's real life pressure washing simulator going on outside. But Evan reveals the truth to this family who he's been lying to this whole year, and afterwards it's revealed that he broke his arm falling from a tree. I mean, he revealed that at the beginning of the movie, then he lied and said it was with Connor, and then it's revealed that the reason he didn't fall out of the tree that he fell from when he broke his arm. He pushed himself out and let himself drop as a suicide attempt. And that's the thing, is that suicide is not something to really make light of. It's a very heavy, personal, emotionally loaded topic. And yet, when that big like boo twist was revealed, that he broke his arm because he was attempting suicide, essentially, I didn't feel sad. I felt like, oh my god, you absolute idiot. Like, that was the best you could think of. And I feel like that's awful. That is so awful to think of. But that's what this movie gave me. They gave me this kid pushed himself out of a tree as a suicide attempt. And it's so poorly handled. Like, it'd be one thing if he wasn't serious or something like that. Like, if it wasn't a serious attempt at suicide and it was just he was emotional and he was let himself go as, like, because that's the thing, is, like, he mentioned at the beginning of the movie that he sat there once he fell to wait to see if anybody would come get him, and nobody did. And I thought, and maybe, like, that would be the thing, is, like, maybe if he let himself drop from the tree in order to, instill some pain. But they specify that it wasn't, they kind of lean into the fact that it was kind of a suicide attempt. It wasn't just a call for help. Well, if they specified that it was a call for attention, that it was self-harm, and that it was just him thinking irrationally and emotionally and just doing this as just a spur of the moment decision, that would be one thing. They very much lean into the idea that Evan attempted suicide, when he broke his arm, by falling out of a tree that was only like a couple stories tall. Like, he basically fell off a roof, is what happened. He fell off a normal 2-story house roof. And we're treating that like I'm sure that there have been attempts like that before, but the way it's delivered, the way it's executed, it feels laughable. Like, it feels like that was the most serious attempt at suicide that they could think of without being absolutely monstrous. And maybe it is, in which case, maybe don't say he tried to kill himself by jumping out of a tree. Like, the whole idea behind that being the big twist about Evan, and as like, so, and that's the other thing too, is that, my God, does it feel like a ploy to make us feel sorry for him when he's the bad guy. This is this is the villain of the story. Evan Hansen is the villain of the story. He is the worst, most monstrous character. He utilizes this kid's death to get closer to the guy's sister. He's lies to the entire school and soon the internet about how Connor was his best friend and that he's so sad that he's gone now. And then he helps a fellow student start a project to help others who have, issues with mental health and depression and anxiety. And then he leaves all that behind then he abandons that whole project when it comes to the fact that he gets to be with this cute girl he's had a crush on this whole time. And then he treats his mother like garbage, just absolute garbage for, working a lot in order to, make sure there's a roof over his head and food on the table. Oh no, she can't always make it because she's working so hard. Oh no, poor Evan. He doesn't have the basic nuclear family amenities. Poor thing. That totally excuses his actions. No. He absolutely is the villain of this story. And then they throw in that big twist that, this whole thing was just, it turns out he was the one who attempted it first, and then, don't you feel bad for him? No, I don't feel bad. In fact, I think he's an idiot. I think he's even more of a loser now, because he let himself fall out of a tree and then lied about it because he's such a little loser. I don't feel bad for this guy because he's an asshole. So yeah, I think that's enough for the spoiler warning. That's all I really have to say on that topic without going too much into it. Suffice to say that, yeah, it is such a terrible execution of this whole endeavor. And I'm guessing, from the sounds of it, the stage play isn't much better. And yeah, I could have sworn let me make sure. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I had to say on the subject. Just absolutely one of the worst executions of this sort of thing. It just apparently also the lead actor playing Evan Hansen is the son of one of the guys behind the whole show. So it's basically a big old nepotism push too. The whole reason he was on stage, he's not bad, but like my daddy wrote me a show. I got to be the star. Now it's being made into a movie, and even though I'm clearly look like I'm pushing 30, he's gonna make me the lead again. Just the worst, absolute worst sort of thing. Yeah, this is an absolute train wreck, and mucks up. It's not as bad as music was. Music is still the low bar for me this year, but boy, is it in that same ballpark. It doesn't hit the home run. It just goes for a double and tries to go for third base. Oy vey. Oh well. We're done with that now, and we don't need the content warnings for people coming in anymore. We are moving on to the next movie, which is another new release, and that is My Little Pony, a new generation or the next generation? A new generation. I keep thinking the next generation because I keep thinking Star Trek. But Gen 5. I should be upfront. I used to be big into the MLP fandom with Gen 4. I was definitely listening to a lot of Brony music, following artists. I even attempted some fanfic you can probably find out there. In fact, Rowan, as a Deer character, was actually thought up originally as part of an MLP project that I had an idea for, where I read out My Little Pony fanfic as audiobooks in a very serious tone, but then the gimmick beyond that would be that the voice actor for it is reading it in a booth, and he's yelling off mic to the production assistant, to the recording assistant, or his personal assistant even, who is a deer named Rowan. And so that's where the name Rowan for a deer came up. So that's how deep into the fandom I was. I kind of fell off halfway through the series, as you know, once all the big hype for it swelled to a head. But I still follow people like Saberspark I met through there, Mike the Microphone I met through there, Pie Nations I met through MLP. Not personally, but I've learned of their work through them. And a good chunk of the staff from last gen are carried over. Like Jillian Barrow is one of the writers here. The actress playing Izzy has done a good bunch of voice work for Gen 4. I think she voiced Sunset Shimmer in the Equestria Girl series. So you've got a good carryover from 4 to 5. And so here the idea is that it's a direct follow-up. Not direct, that's a bad way of saying it, but it is a follow-up of the same universe from Gen 4, but far off into the future. So if you think of it this way, Gen 4 seemed to have a bit of a technology-wise, a bit of a feel for the 1800s, late 19th century going into the 20th. That's that era. And this takes place now. So we're talking hundreds, if not maybe even pushing 1,000 years into Equestria's future, long after Twilight Sparkle was in charge. And in fact, and they don't mention her much in the movie, but I'm guessing she is going to be considered part of equestrian history that we learn in the show that's going to be following this. Because of course there's going to be a show. I mean, it's My Little Pony. Of course there's going to be a show to push the product. That's how this game works. But as for the movie, it's genuinely a very solid kids movie. You know, it's not amazing or anything, but the animation is gorgeous. That's the thing, is like, just anybody, and I'm going to talk about this in another review coming up after for another kids animated movie. And it's wild to think that this is the kind of quality Pixar was giving us 10 some years ago. And now just anybody can do that level of quality. We're getting solid level, you know, decades old, Pixar level tech level animation from just smaller studios. I mean, still, you know, big budget studios, and just in terms of like who's backing them, but smaller in terms of resources behind them. Pixar's got like ILM and and now Disney helping back their innovations. These people are just following that trend, and now just regular studios can have animation quality of this kind. And yeah, it is absolutely gorgeous 3D animation, and I'm curious to see what they'll do for the TV, because TV animation always takes a bit of a downgrade. So I'm curious to see what the TV show's animation is going to look like. But the premise-wise, we're dealing with I didn't write down. I remember Izzy, and I remember Zip. Izzy is the unicorn. Zip is the new Rainbow Dash, the white furred Pegasus with rainbow wings, and the what you call it? It's not a mohawk. It's like a pompadour almost. It's the big, you know, it's that kind of hair. But I don't remember a whole lot of the other names. I know Sunny Short. It's Sunny something. Is the lead, played by Vanessa Hudgens. And since the end of Gen 4, which they do open with an animation starring the voice actresses from Gen 4, that, you know, that's all they open with an acknowledgement of Gen 4 happening, and then it cuts to the present, where that's revealed to be ancient history that Sunny learned from her dad, who is a researcher who is digging into this ancient equestrian past. And since the time of Twilight's era, the Pegasi, unicorns, and Earth ponies have once again divided. Why that didn't bring back the Wendigos, the icy wind-based monsters that feed off of negative energy. I don't know. Maybe I blame global warming personally, but that's just my headcanon. In any case, Sunny grows up and wants to try and instigate a meeting of the three pony species, because she thinks, while everybody else in the Earth ponies, with everybody, all the other Earth ponies are, judgmental and scared of the other pony species. Sunny's the one who's like, well, why don't we actually talk to them? You can't talk to them. That would, actually challenge our prejudices. But her efforts to try and meet, have unicorns and Pegasi come to visit her and visit the Earth ponies, ends with, actually comes to fruition when Izzy, the unicorn with long blue hair, who's essentially like a weird mashup of Pinkie Pie and Rarity. It's an interesting mix-up we've got for everybody here. Izzy comes to visit and sets everything upside down, because everybody's freaking out that a unicorn's here, and then it's revealed that unicorns don't have magic, because supposedly the Pegasi stole it. And so Sunny and Izzy go off to where the Pegasi are to try and find that out. And then it turns out, oh wait, the Pegasi can't fly because their magic is gone. And so then the plot becomes the main crew here, who actually, which I think this is the first time a major My Little Pony generation has had a focal male character as part of the main crew. Because, like, you think of Gen 4, there were male characters, and Spike was part of the crew as well, but he was off to the side. He wasn't one of the main crew. And I don't know about prior to that, but it seemed to be mainly female characters. Here, you actually have a male friend part of the main crew, and I think that's great. It allows for, allows for some interesting. And it's going to be interesting to see how they incorporate him into, because most of the things are probably not going to change at all. I think they do kind of hint that he and played by the male pony here, played by James Marsden. It's unrecognizable. I didn't even realize that was Vanessa Hudgens and James Marsden until the end. The voice cast here, the celebrity cast and the professional cast mix so well that I had no idea that they, that this wasn't just professional voice actors the whole time. But yeah, I forget his name. But yeah, he's kind of a egotistical guy, thinks very highly of himself, but he still considers Sunny his friend and is worries about, her getting herself into trouble. And because he's very, he's the sheriff of the town, and he's very very into keeping the peace, and also seeing himself as, the king, as the big kahuna, the king big shot. And over the course of this journey, he realizes, oh wait, I've had so many things wrong. I need to trust in my friends more. And he and the pink Pegasus, who is Zipperwill's sister, I forget her name, they seem to have a connection. I don't know if that's going to lead into a shipping sort of thing, or if it's just going to remain like just everybody's friends and platonic, and it's not, and nobody's romantic in any way. We'll have to wait and see for the show. But yeah, he's kind of he has a bit of Fluttershy, in that, not in personality, but in the fact that just wild animals seem to love him, which is a running gag. And the thing is, like, all the animals just come up to this guy and nestle up next to him, and he's like, "Go on, I'm doing a thing." It's really sweet. I do like the main characters here. They seem to be playing around. Like, there's clear, like, Zipper Whale's very clearly inspired by Rainbow Dash without necessarily being just Rainbow Dash, but with a color swap. And then Sunny is not quite Twilight. Izzy is not quite Rarity or Pinkie Pie, but like they have similar personality types, similar personality traits, but it's never one to one. These are similar characters. They're similar archetypes, but they're never quite the exact. They're not the exact same. So you're not getting a complete one to one with it from generation 4 to 5. So they're their own characters, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they actually develop them over the course of the show. But yeah, in the meantime, since Izzy came to the Earth Pony City, she caused such a ruckus, and then James Marston Pony goes out to find her after she leaves with Izzy. After Sunny goes out to find Sunny, after Sunny and Izzy leave, which leaves Sprout, played by Ken Jeong, who is the deputy in charge. And because his mom is the CEO, president, whatever you want to call it, of this technological firm, of this factory that makes stuff that's supposed to protect the Earth ponies from unicorns and Pegasi, her, all of her coddling, all of her ego boosting, all of her, all of her like mommy's little boy treatment of him eventually pushes, and not once he finally gets power, it goes to his head. He starts going wild with it, and it leads into the climax. And he serves as the antagonist mainly because his own self-doubt and his own lack of self-worth pushes him to want to be more authoritarian so that people respect him instead of just, being a decent person, being a decent pony. And so you got, and even the mom realizes, look, you're going way out of line here. This is, but he eventually declares himself emperor of the Earth ponies. And it's like, oh, okay. Oh no. And this is not going to end well. And it doesn't end well. But, yeah, the climax is actually interesting the way it goes about, but I won't spoil that. Yeah, it's very interesting because all three kingdoms, the Earth ponies, the Pegasi, and the unicorns, all have these same prejudices against each other, but they all completely don't. It's changed so much from when Twilight was in charge that they've completely forgotten their own history to the point where they don't remember that they all used to get along. So I'm very curious to see about that in-between period, what all changed. Maybe the Wendigos did show up and it caused such strife that they all just went their separate ways and started fomenting, hatred of each other off in their little corners. They all started, because they lost all that contact with each other, and since there was no contact with each other, there was no Discord to allow for, speaking of Discord, I don't know where he's going to show up. Maybe after Fluttershy passed, he decided to just go off into the ether and not bother with ponies anymore. But, what was I saying? That they all went off in their own separate ways. They all went off to their own corners. They stopped talking to each other. So because they stopped talking to each other, that made the Wendigos go away. But they all grew up and they all went to their own corners and started telling lies making up things about each other so that nobody would go bothering the others and getting them back together again. I don't know. We'll find out. But the only other thing I needed to talk about was that the pop music in this, once again, I swear, maybe it's just that I've heard so many musical numbers as a theater kid that, like, you really have to hit it out of the ballpark to stick in my head. Because, like, I think about In the Heights music still, because I'd never heard that before. I hadn't heard it before Hamilton even, And so when I first heard that music, I'm like, okay, yes, that sticks in my head. But here it's just pop music. And then in one song, Izzy has a rap breakdown. Okay, then. Like, I'm not going to go home humming this music, but I've heard worse. But yeah, without, I know Paleo Steno over on YouTube, who I also learned of through the pony community, he mentions that Daniel Ingram isn't returning. And I think a lot of what Gen 4's music, the best parts of Gen 4's music was Daniel Ingram. He was such a good TV musical writer, and a lot of his songs hold up really well. But we'll have to wait and see. What they have here feels more like the kind of stuff that you would write for any pop singer. And it could be sung by anybody. It doesn't really stick in your head. It's not good. It's not memorable even. I think it's on par with a good chunk of the movie. That's the thing, is this actually has a lot in common with the Gen 4 movie. It has in terms of like the songs and the issues with it. It does feel a bit like an extended TV episode. So it does feel like an extended pilot, which makes sense because it is essentially an extended pilot. And the songs aren't all that great, and that was the problem with the Gen 4 movie. It seems like they're still doing the same things, but at least this time the animation's even better than Gen 4's movie, and the characters are interesting, and we don't have, years worth of the show with really good writing and character building and all that stuff to lead into a movie that's just okay. We start off with a movie that's pretty good, and then we're going to lead into the series. So I'm very curious to see where this goes. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. I don't know if it's going to be on Netflix. I don't know if it's going to be on Discovery Plus, maybe? I don't know. Because the hub changed to Discovery Kids. I don't know. I don't know who Hasbro's doing their TV deals with anymore. That changes hands so regularly, I don't even keep up with it. So, in any case, the My Little Pony movie, if you're a fan of the show, of the last gen, I think you'll enjoy this. If you've got little girls and they're into ponies, they'll probably get a kick out of this. It's just a fun kids movie. It's just a genuinely fun light romp kids movie. So, not like great, like Pixar level great or anything like that. I mean, for like a kids movie, we're going to talk about one that's not as good, but also aimed younger. So, My Little Pony, great for like, I would say like preschool to through most of primary. I doubt a lot of people besides animation fans would really be into this, or even like MLP fans through Gen 4 or earlier would be that into this outside past primary school's age, but you never know. In any case, I think it's good. I think it's solid. It's a nice, solid little animated movie. Next up, I'm digging through the. Next up we have the last of the new releases, and it's not a movie per se. It is in fact a mini-series. It is a 9-episode limited series where Disney hired a whole bunch of Japanese animation houses to tell their own stories set in the Star Wars universe. And it's some of the best Star Wars we've had in a long while. Definitely better than most of the sequel trilogy, and honestly on par with, if not better than, The Mandalorian with some episodes. The studios we've got are Kamikaze Doga, who are best known for JoJo, Studio Colorido, Studio Trigger, who is best known for Kill la Kill and a couple others. But I think Kill la Kill is their big one, and one episode they do is very much in that Kill la Kill style. Kinema Citrus does one. Production IG, who go all the way back to Ghost in the Shell. Science Saru do a couple. They're best known for Devilman Crybaby, probably. And then Geno Studio do one. And so Studio Trigger do 2, and Science Saru do 2. But the topics range all over the place. So the first episode is a black and white, very Kurosawa, Ronin samurai, that sort of age of Japanese history inspired one, where a Ronin Jedi Knight ends up in this small village that's uh, being not harassed per se, but like controlled by these former. It takes place like right after the Empire falls, and so there's these former Imperial soldiers who team up with this Sith warrior who actually has this really cool weapon that's like she took an umbrella wire and was able to direct the lightsaber through the staff of the of the umbrella hand, of the handle part of the umbrella through the wires pointing out and basically making a helicopter blade. Just a whole, just like a helicopter blade with lightsabers. It's killer. It's such a killer accessory, and I dig it. Yeah, it's all black and white and then done in this very style. It looks very Sin City a bit, but it's that kind of style to it. We got a chibi style animation that's set on Tatooine, where apparently one of the Hutt kids learns Common or whatever the Star Wars version of English is that everybody speaks. He learns that, stops speaking Huttese, and goes off to start a band. And when Jabba orders him to be returned home for execution, the band goes to help him out. It's a cute thing. Great J-Rock soundtrack for that episode. Really solid. And then the Kill la Kill style one has these two twins fighting over a kyber crystal, and it's very fantasy heavy, very much going against a lot of what we think of as Star Wars in terms of like the sciencey bits of it, and very heavily leaning into the fantasy levels of it, because it does some things that are very like, wait a minute, that's really pushing it, but it's so epic and just wild that it manages to work for the most part. But it's a fun bit. Lots of twists on the Darth Vader aesthetic in this series. You've got one where they're like on a small planet where they do this Force-based marital ritual, but they do it just before the girl is sent off to appease some gangsters, and it's up to a Jedi to intervene. The Jedi is brought there to see to kind of get an idea of what exactly a Jedi's purpose is. Especially like this seems to be right before the rise of the Empire, because they have separatist droid soldiers. You got an Astro Boy style short, which I really dug. That was from Science Saru. They do like an Astro Boy thing where basically, what if Astro Boy wanted to be a Jedi? There's this Ghibli style bit. I caught Ghibli, but it's a lot of different styles to it. The second Studio Trigger one had a Jedi and his Padawan off on this planet where turns out there's a Sith warrior hiding. One of my favorites, the Geno Studio one featuring the Rabbit Girl. Fantastic. Such a cute design. Love her design. In fact, you can see parts of it. I think, yeah, she's the blonde girl with the tan and the flowers in her hair is from the marital ritual episode. I forget what it's called. The bride or something about the bride or something. I don't remember. But Lop is her name, is the bunny girl, of course. Lop. But she's sweet. She's such a cute character. I would watch a whole series with just her. She's such a great character. I love it. And then the last story is actually a lot darker. It's a story about a Jedi who decides to return to help an old flame of his with her family's estate, which has been taken over by a dark side Force user. Hold on, let that phone ring, and then it's gone. Telemarketers. That one is the second Science Saru one, and it's a story about being tempted by the dark side of the Force, and it's so well executed and really solid. Great end note, but it's a dark end note for the series. So many various styles to this series, so many interesting stories to be told with Japanese influences. I love it. In fact, I would be down for this to continue either still with Japanese studios, or if they wanted to go to all the regions. So you get European studios to do a couple, French studios. Oh, you know, it'll be really cool if they got like a Czech stop motion studio or producers to do like a Czech style like If you've ever seen Czech stop motion, it's bananas. If they did a Star Wars story with that style, I would be 100% in. Then you go down to like Africa and get some studios down in say like Nairobi or Lagos, or down in Johannesburg. Various animation studios from around that region, and studios around. Then you go to South America and Central America, Latin America. You get some studios from like Rio or Santiago or Buenos Aires. Various animation houses from that whole region. Maybe some Mexican animation houses. And what if the team that did Book of Life, that just did they're doing that new Mayan or Aztec influenced, that very proto-Columbian influenced animated movie for Netflix. What if they did a Star Wars short? See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you go for all around, make Star Wars Visions a chance for literally everybody around the world to have Star Wars inspired by their culture. I would accept that, or just more Japanese studios, more anime houses. Play around, see who's one's on board with it. Because this experiment worked out phenomenally. Just an amazing, just some amazing ideas thrown into the Star Wars universe, and and for the most part, they all work fantastically. This could easily all fit into canon for the most part, and yeah, it's so fantastic. And I want this to be an ongoing series, either just general global animation houses, or they do more anime houses. Whichever one they decide to go with, I want more. I need more of this because it is genuinely that good. Keep letting independent animation houses give them work just to tell these kinds of stories. That would be amazing. I would be all for that. So yeah, Star Wars Visions, highly recommended. Can't recommend enough. And give me a second. I am gonna grab some water because my throat's starting to fry a little bit. So I'll be right back. You know, you never really think about just how important water is for these kinds of things for streaming until you try drinking something else. Mm. Sorry. Yeah, just because that's the thing. I'll easily admit I drink far too much Coke Zero, and my throat was begging me for some actual water. So that's what I'm giving it. In any case, that was the new releases that came out this week. What we're talking about next is what was stuff I saw while digging through the streaming releases for this past year. I actually pulled up an entire, the entirety. I usually go by the Wikipedia page X year in American film for what to cover in a given year. I've done that since I want to say 2016 when I started doing a podcast for reviewing movies, and so that was my go-to for what to watch in a given year. Is what was on that. That was my definitive release schedule for movies to review. And so I did that. I went through and I found all the movies that I had not yet watched. For either when I tried to do video reviews earlier this year, or for when I started doing it as a VTuber. And so, of all the stuff I missed, there's 190 films. Over the course of this past week, I've watched 8 of them. Now, I don't expect to finish all of them, clearly. That would be insane. Because that's the thing, is a lot of these are going to be indie releases. And some of them don't even have access. Like, there's the ones that are released on streaming, a whole bunch on Netflix, a whole bunch are out on Hulu. There's a good chunk, like at least a dozen that are on Amazon, and then little speckles of this one's on Stars, this one's on Epix, this one's on Showtime, this one's on HBO, so you can get it through HBO Max, or this one's so that there's some I can find here and there sprinkled.
Hey, John.
And I'll rush through these. You got food waiting. Shoot, where was I? Oh yeah, so there's 190 movies, and I got through 8 of them. So I'm gonna rush through the rest of these so that I can get to some dinner. Plus, there's not a whole lot to say about all of them. Infinite's the worst one I saw. That was the one that actively was terrible. It's one of the worst movies of the year, personally. It's the latest from Antoine Fuqua, who's best known for directing Training Day, and I think he kind of peaked early because a lot of his stuff after that has been garbage. Like he did the Olympus Has Fallen series. He started that off. What was his last movie? His last movie wasn't very good either. But this one is starring Mark Wahlberg, Mackie Mack, and Chiwetel Ejiofor. And whoo boy, is it something. He did The Magnificent Seven. And okay, so he's really hit and miss. Oh god, he did that King Arthur movie in 2004. What was the one I'm thinking of? He did something recently that was just... He's supposed to be doing Cat in the Hot Tin Roof? Okay. Brooklyn's Finest? Nah. Huh. Well, there was the Equalizer movies, and those aren't that bad. Shoot. Here, let's do newest first. He also did a movie called The Guilty, which came out this year. It's supposed to come out this year. He did a couple of sports documentaries. What's this? The Gift. Nothing. Nothing about it. So maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. I might be thinking of somebody else. Antoine Fuqua was still fairly solid overall. But in any case, Infinite is Marky Mark in basically your average 2000s era. Oh dear. And we're babysitting my niece, and I don't know what's going on. Anyway, focus on the review. Basically, this is of the same quality as Jumper in terms of the story, but it's all just absolute garbage. It's supposed to be based on a book. No idea if the book's any good, and I have no interest in checking it out now. But the idea is that these people have been reincarnating for centuries, if not millennia, and have been using their gained knowledge to become essentially, superhumans. And not in terms of physicality, but in terms of intelligence and being able to, take their past knowledge and, training and all of that stuff to basically be superhuman in a sense. But Mark Wahlberg's different because apparently his character has schizophrenia. And it is handled about as well as Dear Evan Hansen handles suicide. Not to mention the fact that I just think Mark Wahlberg's a charisma-less hole. He's just a hole of charisma. He is terrible as... I don't understand, aside from knowing the right people and looking, being in shape, why he keeps being given these leading roles, because he's just not very good in them. He gives the same delivery every single time, and it's not, it's one thing if you're going to be a movie star, then what you need is charisma. It's what works with Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise and all of the usual movie stars that don't have much range, but they are good at playing the role that they are known for. And here, Wahlberg has none of that. He's just the same asshole from Southie every single time. And Ejiofor is acting circles around him, but he's also chewing through the scenery like he just got to an all-you-can-eat buffet after not eating for a week. So he is just absolutely tearing through the scenery, and even he can't save this movie. It's so terribly written, convoluted, makes no goddamn sense. And then you've got action sequences that all rely on quick cuts, or what I like to refer to as hibachi editing, where it's where you barely get a second before the next shot. It is that horribly cut. So terrible. And then the rest of the crew behind Wahlberg are bland. Mantzoukas shows up from Jason Mantzoukas, who's probably best known for How Did This Get Made, in which case he might be able to give a first-hand account of how did this get made. And yeah, the dumbest action set pieces I've seen in a movie for a while. Just everything about this movie feels like the kind of crap we saw in the mid-2000s with stuff like Jumper. And I can't believe Antoine Fuqua directed this, except that I remember Olympus Has Fallen was because of him. And yeah, hopefully whatever he got paid to make this movie will lead to a better movie next time. Yeah, this is over on Paramount Plus, and it's garbage. Definitely one reason to not subscribe to Paramount Plus. Meanwhile, also on Paramount Plus, we've got the other kids movie I mentioned, and that is Paw Patrol. Yeah, remember how they were supposedly canceled? That never happened, because nobody was coming for Paw Patrol, because nobody cared about Paw Patrol. It was a joke. It's like a joke that, that Ace is a class traitor in Paw Patrol. but nah, I mean, that's the thing, is that Paw Patrol presents an idealized version of, emergency services. Wouldn't it be nice if emergency services were as good as they were in kids media? But whatever. I never watched the show. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's not awful. But the movie has, once again, this mid-2000s Pixar level of animation quality, and it seems that just any Hollywood studio can have that level of quality nowadays. Which, hey, that's good. That's good that we're at least getting good animation from these things. But the story here revolves around the Paw Patrol going from this small town, Adventure Bay, to Adventure City, where I'm guessing their usual series villain, I forget his name, some guy in a top hat, becomes the mayor and absolutely sends the city into a nosedive because he's more concerned about adventure, quote unquote, and action and big stunts than he is about, people's safety or making the city a good place to live. And so it's up to the Paw Patrol to clean up his messes all the time, and during which time he's also like, I need to stop the Paw Patrol. And I'm sure that would make sense. It'd make more sense if I watched the show, but probably not. That being said, they also try to throw in a backstory for Ace, in which Adventure City was where he was found and rescued as a pup, while he is still a pup. So it's a younger pup. Like I said, when I try to add a emotional backstory to a character, it doesn't make sense when that was basically like a month ago. But Ace was found there. He was abandoned, and so he's got abandonment issues, and he still freaks out. And now he's freaking out while he's back in the city because he feels like he's being abandoned again, and so he's in the wrong headspace. But it's fine. Like I said, it's not terrible, but it's not amazing either. It's very middle of the road, and this one also has celebrity cameos, but aside from one, they're all just kind of scattered. Like, Tyler Perry is like a one-scene cameo, and then the henchmen for the mayor, for the Top Hat villain, are played by Dax Shepard and what's his name? Randall Park from I think it's Kim's Convenience, but that may be another one he was on. But yeah, Randall Park. He was also the one who played. He was from The Office. He played Kim Jong-un in The Interview. Dax Shepard and Randall Parks, I think, got the gigs because their kids love Paw Patrol. So it's like, oh, we'll do cameos for it, and so they could be like, hey, look, Daddy's in Paw Patrol. And then Kim Kardashian shows up for like a scene and then is never seen again. It's the weirdest cameo I've ever. It's the weirdest cameo I've seen in a while. Just for no reason. She's just a poodle in the pound, and then never shows up again. But yeah, much more so than My Little Pony. This feels like 3 episodes crammed together. 3 episodes worth of story crammed into a single one. And yeah, and then but they do. I'm curious to see if they do carry over. If this is not the end of the Paw Patrol, which if it's still making money, I doubt it is. But they introduce a new dog played by one of the kids from Blackish, and she's a little dachshund named Liberty, and they add her to the team over the course through the course of the movie. And it's going to be interesting to see if she carries over the same way that like Dill Pickles did, and Dill and Kimmy did in the Rugrats movies. They carried over into the series afterwards. God, Nickelodeon's been doing that for how long now? 2 decades? But yeah, Paw Patrol. Better seeing on Paramount Plus than in theaters, I think. I think it's way better for parents and families. I don't even know why they try to put it in theaters. But yeah, it's a solid kids movie. Good animation, and much more for younger audiences. I doubt older kids are going to be that into this. Next up is over on Apple Plus. I watched a documentary on whale songs called Fathom. And Fathom is alright. I've been sorely lacking on my documentary watching, and so I'm hoping that through this binge, I'll get some good documentaries in this year because I love documentaries. I loved animal documentaries and dinosaur documentaries back in the day, and nowadays I just like good good documentaries. I'm a big advocate for documentary filmmaking, and I want to see good documentaries when I can. So I'm hoping this catch up will allow me to do that. As for this one, it's two scientists across on different sides of the world trying to study whale song. Except they throw you right in the deep end with the science, and I felt so lost for a good chunk of the movie. Not to mention the fact that because of the high frame rate cameras they use, it looks weird. It looks so. It looks like fast motion on the camera work. It is, which is fine. They're not worried about like cinematography for this sort of thing. It's supposed to be about their studies. In which case, it's kind of dry and like they're not very camera or like presentation friendly outside of scientific circles. Like if they gave these presentations as a conference, like the talking head interview stuff from this movie, if they talked like this at a conference or something like that, or a symposium, that would be fine. But watching a documentary, I felt distant. It felt I wasn't very engaging. Compare this to something like The Square from back in 2013. That was one of my favorite documentaries that I saw that year. It was about the Arab Spring in Egypt and how all of this hope and promise from overthrowing this dictatorial authoritarian regime resulted in abject chaos, and then the ultimate return to power of the authoritarians. And it really is, that was such a compelling documentary to watch, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's probably buried on Netflix now. You'd have to go through the search function to find it, but The Square, highly recommend it. Fathom, it's not a big push to watch for Apple TV Plus. It's pretty bland and very inside baseball when it comes to this sort of thing. So if you're not already interested in whale song, then you're probably not going to be all that engaged with it. I did watch a couple other documentaries, but they were much shorter. I watched one on Charles Schultz, and it just had a lot of the same information that I had known, but it's a great introduction for new fans of the Peanuts. And it had some animation and animated bits featuring the current cast and crew of the Peanut specials that they're doing, and the Snoopy show that they're doing over on Apple. And the other one was... Why can't I remember the other one? The Year Earth Changed. It's a hour-long documentary from David Attenborough, or at least narrated by David Attenborough, and it's about about 2020 and how humans in lockdown allowed for nature to go through some healing processes, like so much less fog. People in India got to see a mountain range that they hadn't seen in probably decades. Certain animal populations took a big jump up in numbers. The deer in Nara ventured out from the park where they're usually fed this fairly bland rice cake diet, and were able to graze on overgrown patches of grass. It really, like there was a cool bit in that documentary, the Year Earth Changed, on Apple TV Plus if you want to look for it, where it's a safari park in Africa, and all the animals just come hang out at the safari park without any humans around, and then it follows a leopard as he's hunting in the middle of the day for food. Like, entirely new behavior that has never been documented before. And it's really interesting to see just how much nature is able to bounce back a bit when we get the hell out of its way. Highly recommend that one. Next up is it's a remake of a French film. I don't know what the original was called, but this is called CODA. It's an acronym standing for Child of Deaf Adults. And I learned this actually from the why can't I remember? It's such a good movie. It's one of the ones I recommend. It's one of the ones that ended up on my best of 2020 year list. Hold on, let me grab it. Where's 2020? Here. No, it's not. That's for the video intro. Sound of Metal. The Sound of Metal. I was introduced to this terminology from Sound of Metal because the actor who got nominated for supporting role for best supporting role from Sound of Metal is a CODA. He is a child of deaf adults. And so the story focuses on a young girl whose mother, father, and brother were all born deaf. And she is basically their translator. And the mother's played by veteran deaf actress Marlee Matlin, who made certain that the studios actually hired deaf actors. Good for her, because to have just one deaf actor on set playing a deaf character feels kind of shitty. But the rest of the story is kind of bland. Because like I've seen this before. It's the kid doesn't want to do, it's Varsity Blues. I don't want your life. It's the teenage kid who feels stuck in a rut and wants to live their own life, but they're stuck with family obligations. In this case, her family does fishing off the coast. I think it's northeast, like up in Massachusetts or something like that. And then Eugenio Derbez shows up in this weirdly like flamboyant stereotype that he does. It's just weird because like I've seen him play it less flamboyant, and yet he plays it just way flamboyant this time. He's not gay, but it's like this weird gay stereotype. That's that flamboyant. But they mention he has a wife and kids, so it's like, okay, weird flamboyant personality. Then not sure why that's needed. I mean, that's the thing. Is like he can be the tough. He's maybe it was his way of trying to act like the tough, no nonsense teacher. But number one, he's a choir teacher, and number two, if that's his version of acting tough and doing no nonsense, he's not the right fit for that. I'll admit, I'm a choir kid. I've had tough, no nonsense choir teachers too. They were not absolutely flamboyant. Maybe yours was. But, it just, I don't know. I think his portrayal felt weird. Came right the hell out of nowhere. Also, they're singing really inappropriate songs for high school. They're like singing What a Man by TLC and Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye. It's like, even if this was like show choir, jazz choir, whatever you want to call it, it's really inappropriate for high school kids to be singing these songs. Like the most appropriate one they sing is Perfect by Ed Sheeran. And even then, just weird song choices all around. Also, I think my problem was, I think the protagonist is unlikable. Like, I never got the sense that she loved to sing. She's just always angry at everyone around her. And granted, they're teenagers like that because adolescence sucks dick. I'm just gonna say that. Adolescence sucks balls. It's awful. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But I genuinely thought she was just not a likable character. I didn't care what she did with her life because she just treats everyone around her like garbage. She's not very likable. She treats people like crap. She's not as awful and manipulative as Evan Hansen, but it's that same sort of like, oh, whatever. It's just, I'm over teenage angst. I am just over teenage angst. I'm done with it. I could do the rest of my life without teenage angst anymore. But, I also think the movie is too long. Like 2 hours long, it feels pushing it. I feel like 100 minutes, maybe 105, you would be perfectly fine. But I feel like you could cut a good 15 minutes out of this movie and not lose a thing. And yeah, like the whole romance subplot she has with this guy she's singing perfect with goes nowhere, has no chemistry. I actually cared more about the deaf family trying to start their own, because that's the thing is, as Fishers, they have to do this through an auction house, and they keep getting shafted on their money. And so the deaf father decides to say, screw you, I'm going to start my own, I'm going to sell my own fish with blackjack and hookers. And then they run into the problems of they need somebody who is hearing on the boat because they get called out by the Coast Guard. And and so the girl feels like she's kind of stuck, but it's up, but they also, and in fact, there's a really interesting point where the brother tells her to her face that things were better off before you were born. And I'm like, oh, dip. And then it just cuts to the rest of the movie, and that whole part is forgotten. So like, there was no emotional weight to it, sadly. But yeah, that was such a wild moment to see. Like, oh, dip. We're at that point in their relationship now. But yeah, it does seem like the family are gearing towards trying to hopefully function without her as a constant translator so that she can go off and live her own life. And yeah, and then there is a really touching moment right towards the end, right after their spring concert, right after her big debut as a singer. Her parents see the people's reactions, but they can't hear her sing. They can see her perform, but her dad listens to her by placing his hands on her throat. Like, not hands, fingers. Like, you can't see, but it's this thing where you place the hands up against, not the hands, it's just the fingertips, up against the around the trachea, and that right under the chin. He listens to her. He has her sing while his fingertips are placed by her trachea in order to hear her. So he's able to hear the vibrations, and it's a absolutely beautiful moment to basically have this deaf guy get the closest he can to hearing his daughter sing. And she sings, and hearing her sing beautifully. It's a really touching moment. But I think overall it's an average drama. I feel like Sound of Metal does better as a story about deafness and the deaf community than this, but I cared more about the deaf family in this than the girl going through her whatever mom phase. So CODA, I would still recommend it. It's still worth a watch. I'd be very curious to see if that French movie is any better, because I know the one with Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart is supposedly way better, that they remade. They remade a French movie. That was the one with where it's like a Senegalese man, I think, or something, and taking care of a French billionaire. It was one of it's rated one of the best movies of all time. And then they remade it with Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart, and it's just fine. So maybe it's just that we should kind of hold off on making French films unless we really understand the material. But whatever. Next up is the second musical I watched this past week, and I mentioned it before, but yeah, Come From Away was going on to Broadway right before the pandemic hit, and it's the story of a small town in Newfoundland in Canada that took a diverted flight on 9/11 because the plane was already in the air flying from Paris to Dallas, and they had to be diverted over to Newfoundland, so it was the story of this small town helping to bring in these people, and it's a musical, and it's not a bad musical, but I think it suffers from the same problem of like, the songs aren't bad, but like nothing really hooked me in. And I think the staging suffered from the fact that it feels like a community theater production. What I mean by that is that it's very limited in it uses a lot of minimalism. There's like no sets. Everybody does the vignettes off to the side and then there's just props and a bunch of chairs, which I get. It's the pandemic, but I'm very curious to see how this would do in a full-on theatrical production, or if this is just it. In which case, maybe a feature film would be better. This is one thing. This is something that maybe a feature film would do better because you could have an ensemble cast of grand proportions, so you could have different actors playing these different parts, and it's not just the same 20 people limited to like doing all the parts. But it's fine. It's a solid. People were loving this, and like that's the thing is this honest. All this made me do was think to myself, I should get back into community theater when I get the chance. But yeah, it felt like a community theater production, not a Broadway production. But it's not a bad story. It actually reminds me. I have an aunt, quote unquote aunt. It's my uncle's ex-wife, but I still call her my aunt. Who wrote this play called The Women of Lockerbie. Very similar, only hers was a straight play, and this is a musical. Very similar, topics though. Only instead of 9/11, this was a Scottish tragedy. Plane crash happened there in like I think the 70s or 80s, and then it was about the aftermath of that. Mother from New Jersey roams the hills of Lockerbie, Scotland, looking for her son's remains after the plane crash of Pan Am 103. Oh, that was only 2005? I thought she wrote that way earlier. But yeah, Women of Lockerbie. If you get the chance to see that show, I highly recommend it. Not sure how widely... she was actually still married to my uncle when she published it. Or something, because that must have been her legal name still, because... My family's name is listed there in her author. At any rate, yeah. Look up The Women of Lockerbie when you get the chance. I think it would be a great companion piece to see if they could if you could see this as a double bill for theatrical productions, or if they made movies out of each, it would be a great double bill. Women of Lockerbie as well as Come From Away. I think they have a very interesting sort of shared themes in terms of like dealing with the tragedy centering around flight. But yeah, Come From Away, not the most amazing. It's basically a filmed production. It's like I was mentioning with Dear Evan Hansen, the filmed production of a stage play. And it feels like they're trying to ride the coattails of the Hamilton thing, what Disney Plus did. But I think this was before that. When did Hamilton come out on Disney Plus? Was it 2020 or this year? 2020. So maybe they're trying to do the Hamilton thing of like, hey, we can get a popular Broadway show on our streaming service too. And I mean, I get that it's trying to be like, oh, hey, we filmed this during the pandemic, and this is our big like we're sticking together in the face of great tragedy and strife and whatnot, and it's just okay. Like, this is perfectly fine. I wouldn't walk away like humming the tunes or anything like that, but it's fine. I think this would work better for a movie given the scope of what they're dealing with, though, rather than a limited like, everybody we have to deal with the fact that there's like no sets and it's all minimalism. And then the last thing I saw was an independent movie called Shiva Baby. Shiva Baby is the directorial debut of a new up-and-comer named Emma Seligman, and she kind of captures that young adult struggle that a lot of millennials and Zoomers are feeling now, and that many younger generations have felt when they came to this age in their life, the young adult age, the 20s, the early 30s, and this hesitancy, this unsure nature of what you want to do with your life. And here that's thrown into also a very cultural phenomenon called Shiva. Shiva is the Jewish practice of spending a week mourning a lost loved one, a Jewish family member, community member, what have you. And so after the Jewish funeral, they hold Shiva for a week. And so this is day one of the Shiva. I guess maybe it was day 7, I'm not sure. It seems like, I think it's day 1 because they mentioned the funeral earlier. So this is like day 1 of Shiva, and everybody's getting together at somebody's house for like a get together where they talk amongst themselves, and it's like a what is that called, a memorial, kind of like a memorial, or whenever or kind of like calling hours some people will do for funerals. It's that sort of thing where the people will get together and eat afterwards and all that, and it's kind of like a reunion of sorts. But it's, in any case, the lead character Danielle is kind of struggling. She's about to graduate college with this weird major she chose herself, and she's not quite sure what to do career-wise. But she's also having this relationship with this older guy, and eventually that comes back to bite her in the ass, because turns out he shows up at Shiva later on, as well as her ex-girlfriend from high school and from her teenage years. Her ex-girlfriend, who is going to law school. And so while Danielle is, and so the one thing this movie has going for it is its score. It's a comedy, but it's more like a dark satire, where it's a tense horror thriller, and the tension builds all the way over the course of the movie. If you have high levels of anxiety, this movie is not a good sit, because I just kept feeling, I felt tense. The score really helped. The score is what I like to call oops all pizzicato, which just basically means it's like bling, 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 and it's just like the violin is just like it's just plucking along all through the movie, and it's just it's like the beating of his damned heart. I did it, I killed him, he's here under the floorboards. God, it's like a horror movie soundtrack. And then while that's playing, it's just like a bunch of Jewish family and friends, just like, oh yeah, have you met, how have you been? Oh my God, you've lost so much weight. And Danielle's just like, it's like the perfect encapsulation of social anxiety and anxiety in general. It's just like, people with a lot, especially, not just people that are beyond introverted and just have a full-on social anxiety disorder. This manages to capture that really well. It is something to behold. And while that's going on, she's also dealing with judgment from her family, judgment from her ex, and then the turns out the guy she's been shipping this, for the last couple of weeks or months is showing up there, and then she's learning more about him and his wife and kid. And then it's just like she keeps, all the tension keeps building over the course of Shiva, and then it just has a great breakdown moment where she loses it after she knocks over a vase. And I'm not sure how much of this is autobiographical, if Seligman had these kind of interactions as somebody going into the arts. But yeah, it is a wild movie, because I'm not going to say it's amazing, because while the juxtaposition of just Jewish families getting together and talking to each other as played like a horror movie with the tension continually building for this girl over the course of the events, it's not like I've heard people say, oh my God, I haven't laughed so hard. I'm like, I didn't laugh that much. I was more like, oh, this is like, I respect this movie more than I love this movie. Like, I'm not going to put this on my favorites list, even as an honorable mention. Maybe as an honorable mention. But I respect this movie, and I'm very interested to see how Seligman follows it up, because this really does a good job of building this tension. She could easily jump from comedy to horror the way that Jordan Peele did, because they both have that same mentality. She made a great horror movie, except the subject matter was Shiva. And I think that juxtaposition it manages to work, because you've got all of the judgment and anxiety that you get from interacting with family when you're feeling all of this self-doubt and self-loathing and all of these own issues that you're dealing with, and then you've got everybody looking at you and you're judging you and making passes at your life choices, trying to make choices for you because they think they're better, and it's all of these things encapsulated into this one experience. And it's only like 80 minutes long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I love it. So yeah, Shiva Baby's over on HBO Max. If you have the stomach for this kind of tension and just like uneasiness, then I highly recommend it. But there's dinner getting cold, so that's all I watched this week. I'm gonna try and binge through the entirety of The Sopranos in the lead up to the prequel movie that's coming out on Friday. So we'll see how well that goes. I'll keep everybody posted over on Twitter. So until next time, see you then. Bye.